Hey everybody, Mac here, and we are working on multiplying binomials. And that's when you have a parenthesis times a parenthesis, and there's two terms in each parenthesis. Two terms in a parenthesis, that's what a binomial means. Bi meaning two. We were working on the FOIL method, which is first, outer, inner, and the L last. I've had many students go, well, I was told to FOIL, but I never knew what FOIL meant. Well, there you go. First, outer, inner, last. Okay, and this is version B. I do have a version A and a version of me doing this on a whiteboard, and you can find all that at maxtutorials.com, M-A-C-S. And anytime you guys like or subscribe to these things, I really appreciate it. Also, when you guys give me comments, I love that too. All right, so the long way, A times A is A squared. That's my first. Here's my outer, plus 7A. Sorry, I did an X there. My inners, which is a plus 4A, and my last, which would be a positive 28. I watch my signs there, and I'm going to always have these middle terms, A squared plus 11A plus 28. Now I'm going to FOIL number 2. I'm going to go first, Y squared, outer, positive 6y, inner, negative 3y, and my last, which is negative 18. I've got these guys to combine. I get y squared plus 3y minus 18. Now, I showed you a shortcut in version A. You do need to know this, and we're going to do this a lot in version C, so make sure you understand what FOIL means. But now, here's the shortcut. If you notice in number 1, if I just take the positive 4 and positive 7 and add them, I get the middle. If I take the positive 4 and positive 7 and I multiply, I get the third term. Look at the other one I did. If I take negative 3 and positive 6 and add, I get positive 3. If I take negative 3 and positive 6 and multiply, I get negative 18. So now let's just go through on this. I know this is going to be an m squared and an m. I add them, I get a positive 3. I multiply them, and I get a negative 10. It's really that simple, guys. I'm going to just keep going down the column for ease. I'm going to have a k squared and a k. My middle term is going to be when I add. My third term is going to be when I multiply. Number 7, I'm going to have an r squared and an r. When I add, I get a 1. Now, I don't, and it's going to be a positive 1, right? Positive 6, negative 5 is a positive 1. But I don't have to write the 1. And in fact, in your multiple choice, if you have one of those in a test, you're not going to see the 1. So let's get used to not seeing the 1 when it really is a 1. And I multiply, and it's going to be a negative 30, okay? On this one, I'm going to get a c squared and a c. When I add, I get plus 12. When I multiply, I get a plus 11. Number 11, I'm going to get a q squared, and I'm going to get a q. When you add them, it's going to be a positive 2. When you multiply them, it's a negative 48. Number 13, I'm going to get a w squared and a w. Middle term, I add, positive 14. Third term, I multiply, which is going to be a positive 24. Number 15, I'm going to get a z squared. Why do we use z's? And I'm going to get a z. That's not a 2, it's a z. Add them, I'm going to get a negative 1, but I don't need to write the 1. Okay, so it's going to be minus z, and I'm going to multiply and get a negative 56. Okay, number 17, I'm going to get a g squared and a g. When I add them, I get plus 14, and when I multiply, I get a plus 45. Okay, number 19, I'm going to get a j squared, and I'm going to get a j. When I add, it's positive 3. When I multiply, it's negative 70. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the other column over here. I'm going to go to number 4. Okay, I'm going to get a p squared, and I'm going to get a p. When I add them, I get a negative 9. When I multiply them, watch this, a positive 8, because a negative times a negative is a positive. Number 6, I'm going to get a t squared and a t. Add the 4 and the 10, it's a negative 4 and a positive 10, so it's a positive 6. When I multiply a negative 4 and a positive 10, I get a negative 40. Let's go on to number 8. I'm going to get a b squared, and I'm going to get a b. When I add them, I get a negative 9. When I multiply them, I get a positive 14. Number 10. I'm going to get here an n squared and an n. When I add them, negative 9 plus a positive 4, I get a negative 5. When I multiply, I get a negative 36. Let's go to number 12. I'm going to get an h squared and an h. My middle term, and when I add two negatives, I just add them and keep the sign. And when I multiply them, a negative times a negative is a positive. And that's my answer. Number 14, that's going to be a d squared and a d. Now remember, this only works in the form when it's a letter plus something and the same letter plus or minus something. Okay, so if this becomes like a 5d or something, this trick doesn't work. Okay, so it only works in this form, and we'll find that in version C. All right, let me add them. That's going to become a negative 7. Let me multiply them. That's going to become a negative 30. This is going to be very helpful if you learn this trick for when we learn the factor, because I'm going to go back to this when we talk about factoring. Number 6, I'm going to have an f squared and an f. When I add them, they add to a negative 16, but they multiply to a positive 48. Let's go to number 18. I'm going to get a u squared and I'm going to get a u. When I add them together, I get a negative 4, and when I multiply them together, I get a negative 12. Number 20, I'm going to get an s. That's not a 5, that's an s, but an s squared and an s. When I add them together, I get a negative 14, and when I multiply a negative times a negative, it's a positive 13. Okay, and that, my friends, is B. Now, I'm glad you learned the shortcut, but make sure you also understand the whole FOIL process, because we will have to FOIL in version C, okay? And in fact, I think you should all go to C. Don't skip it. Do all three in this one. Make sure you really understand this, because it's going to help you when we end up factoring, okay? All right, I'll see you guys on C.